me, I'm Bobbie Sellers. I've come to several of the meetings there at Texas Tech, but I was a 911 operator, police dispatcher. We call ourselves telecommunicators for 25 years. I've been retired now for 3. And so if you have any questions about 911, I'll be glad to answer them. So we're going to start with you and 911. And so we can't help you if we can't find you. So you have to know where you're at. And the hardest part of that is when you're in an emergency situation, it's really hard to remember, especially if you're out on the road. So could 911 find you in case of an emergency? So know where you're at when you're driving, when you're traveling, that sort of thing, but also at home. So your physical address, if you live in Abilene, it's a little bit easier than if you're living in the country, but there is still some addresses in Abilene that are hard to find. So you need your address posted in a couple of places. So your physical address, phone number, and the name, whoever is paying the phone bill on a landline, that's the name that comes up when you call 911 on a landline. So it'll come up on the dispatcher's screen and she will see the address you're calling from, your phone number, and the name that pays that's on the account. And that will come up on her screen. So the name that's on the account is not necessarily the person that's calling in. So make sure you let the operator know who you are. You can't use a rural route number or a post office box number because that doesn't tell us anything. So you need to have a physical address. So if you don't know what your 911 address is, then there's places you can go, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So in an emergency, seconds count. Post your address so that it is visible from the street or the road. In the city, it's not so hard. You see the addresses on the curbs and on the house, so it needs to be in at least 2 places. If it's on the house, it'd be great if it was lit up at night, have a little light on it. I'm probably getting ahead of myself. So post your address in 2 locations, your door of the house, property, the entrance, mailboxes, on the curb, if you're in the country, on fences, whatever, but where people can see. Sorry, my hands, I talk with my hands. But have them posted to where they're easily seen from the street. The only problem with the ones on the curb, and I think you should have them on the curb, is that if a car is parked in front of it, we're not going to be able to see it. So make sure you have it on the house as well. If you're in the country, entrance to your property should be marked. Like I'm a 1/4 of a mile off the road and you have to go through a big iron metal gate to get to me. So I have it posted on my mailbox out there, which is fine, but there's 3 mailboxes in one row there. But I have it on my gate and I have it on my house because there's 2 houses on my road to get on my driveway. So on your drive, your lane, your easement, mine is an easement, access road, whatever it is, have it posted to where you can see it. So mailboxes help, but like I said, I have 3 mailboxes in front of my property, and one of them is across the road from me. But you have to, it doesn't make it easy for the emergency responders to find you if they have to go by just a mailbox. I don't know how many of you are out in the country and how many of you are in the city, but if you're out in the country, in the rural areas, the letters and numbers to your address should be at least 6 inches high. In the city, they only have to be 3 inches high. So, but have it marked in at least 2 places on your property. Okay. Just because you're in the city doesn't mean it's easy to find. In Abilene, there are so many places that are kind of hidden away, and they're for the people who live there, it's not hard to find, or people who know where they're going, it's not hard to find. But if you've never been there, it may be something that is hard to find. Most of our addresses are, even on one side of the road, odds on the other side of the road, vice versa. So have a light on your address if you can. Now I know I don't have any lights out here, and that's one thing that I've mistaken on, but most people in the country have a big light outside their house to light up their property, and I don't have that. So they have to go by what's on the gate, and then whatever information I give them when I have to call in. I've only had to call in, thankfully, only a couple of times. So try to have your address marked really well. So check your address with your city's 911 addressing coordinator. In areas around Abilene, you would contact the West Central Texas Council of Governments, and there's a number there, and I can give you those numbers anytime you need. So if you're outside of the city limits of Abilene, that's who you would go to make sure that your 911 address is correct. Also, if you wanted to, you could call the police department or the sheriff's office, whoever takes care of your area, and they can tell you when the slow time is, and just call 911 and ask them what's coming up on your screen. But you might give them a little warning. Call them on the non-emergency line, say, I'd like to call 911 and see if my addressing is correct. And they'll let you know if they're in a emergency situation or not. Because the people in the county, the dispatchers in the county, they may only have one dispatcher on duty. And if that's the case, if she has 2 911 calls coming in, she's swamped, because not only is she having to handle those calls, she's having to get the emergency responders headed that way as well. So it's a little bit difficult for the county dispatchers because there's only one. But in Abilene, we may have as many as 7 on at a time, because we would take in Abilene, and this is 3 years ago, so I'm assuming that the numbers have gone up. But in Abilene, we were taking, when I retired, just under 1,000 calls a day. So it gets pretty hectic sometimes, especially if a bad storm or something has come in. If you're in Abilene, you would contact Mike Saxton, and there's his phone number, and he can let you know if he does the addressing for Abilene, the 911 addressing, and he can help you and make sure that all the information on your 911 address is correct. So know your location at home if you're calling on a landline. And who has landlines anymore besides me? I mean, I have a landline, but not many people have landlines anymore. Landlines are great because if you have to call 911 and you can't talk, if somebody has broken into your house or whatever and you can't talk, you can call 911 and leave an open line. And if you leave an open line, they know where that call's coming from because it's a landline. And they will send, Abilene's protocol on an open 911 line is to send everybody. And the reason we came across that early 90s, it always takes a tragedy to have a policy change. But in the early 90s, out at Lake Fort Fannin, we got an open 911 line. And at that time, our policy was to document it and send an officer out to check the location, see if everything was okay. Well, the lake is a long ways off. And so by the time the officer gets there, the house was fully involved. It was a house fire. And to top it all off, it was on Christmas Eve. Everybody in the house died. And I mean, it was a total loss. So now when we have an open 911 line, everybody goes. You're going to get a fire department, you're going to get police, and you're going to get an ambulance. Now in the county, their policies may be different. So whatever county you're in, you need to take up and ask them what happens if we leave an open 911 line. But now if you have an open 911 cell phone line, it's totally different because we're not exactly sure where you're at. We can pinpoint it to a certain point. We can triangulate the what do you call it, signals that come off the towers, and we can get you pretty close to where you're at. But if you're in a group of houses, we may have to go door to door to door in a little area trying to find you. If you're out in a wooded area or in a field somewhere, it may take us a little longer to find you, but we can narrow it down, but it just takes longer. So if you're on a cell phone, know where you're at and tell us where you're at the best you can. So emergencies can be really confusing. You're scared, you're nervous, whatever's happening, you know, it could be a medical emergency or whatever, but especially on the older generation, if you've got parents or grandparents that are um, going through this and you're not sure during an emergency if they would be able to get their address correct, because they could transpose some numbers in their address. Sorry, I got a little dog trying to look over my shoulder. But you might write them down on index cards and post them next to their phone on the refrigerator or whatever, so they can just read that card off. And that comes into that helps them out a lot to try to get their address out. I've had so many people call in very scared. Somebody was breaking in their house or something, and they transpose the numbers in their address. And when they do that, we could be several houses off, and it takes us longer to find you. So, but if it does come up on a landline, we would verify the address. Even if it's a cell phone, we would verify the address, but at least on a landline, we're looking at it. On a cell phone, we would, you would give us the address or location and we would verify it. Did you say such and such? And a lot of times, especially if it's a very traumatic call, we might purposely give you the address back wrong to make sure that you're giving it. And you go, oh, no, 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 it's this. And that way we're absolutely certain that we're going to the right address. So don't be confused or like upset because, oh, that dispatcher didn't, I told her the address and she didn't know. Well, sometimes we'll give it back to you wrong on purpose to make sure we've got it correct, make you say it again. What really gets hard is when you're traveling. I don't know about you guys, but when I'm traveling, not so much now because of what, you know, being a 911 operator, but back in my younger days, I would get in the car and just go. And I couldn't tell you what town I just went through. You know, you get like focused on where you're going. And then all of a sudden something happens. You go, where am I? You know, where am I at? You know, and you wouldn't be able to tell. So know where you're at when you're on the road. Mile markers aren't as prominent as they used to be. Used to be every mile there was a mile marker, right? Not so much anymore. What I've noticed is they put them on the road signs for the highway or road you're traveling on. About every 4 miles, there'll be a little tiny mile marker underneath that road sign. So you'll have to look for them, but you need to look when you're traveling to see if the mile markers are getting larger or smaller, so you can kind of guesstimate where you're at. So I do that a lot when I'm traveling, to say, oh, the next mile marker is going to be such and such, to see how close I am when I'm traveling. So, and know what direction you're traveling and what county you're in if you can. When you're going to San Angelo from Abilene, it is hard to know what county you're in because it's like you'll be going through 3 or 4 counties in a matter of 5 or 10 minutes. They're just butted up to each other so close. So if you can, know the county you're in, but the dispatcher will probably be able to pinpoint as much as she can, but at least know which direction you're traveling. I had a little girl call me one time and she was lost. She didn't know where she was. She did know she was in Texas. She had been traveling for days. She had a little 5-year-old in the back seat who was asleep. She had a flat tire or car trouble or something, but she was pulled over on the side of the road and she did not know where she was. And I'm asking her for landmarks. What road are you on? She didn't even know what highway she was on. So I knew she had to be close to Abilene because this was early on 911. So she had to be pretty close. So I kept questioning her. There was nothing around. She couldn't figure out where she was. She didn't even know what direction she was traveling, but she was headed towards New Mexico. So she figured she was going west, but you know, she wasn't sure. She'd been traveling for so many days. Anyway, I took a chance. Thank goodness it was during the daytime. And I took a chance and I said, are you off the road? And she said, yeah, I'm pulled off right. I'm pretty far off the road. And so I had her get out of her car and I said, try to wave down a truck. And so she waved down a trucker. And when she waved him down, she said, oh, he's pulling over. He's pulling over. And I said, I need you to tell me what kind of truck it is, if he's got a box trailer, what he's hauling, license plate numbers if you can, because I didn't know this guy could be a traveling serial killer for all I knew. But this is all I knew what to do to try to figure out where she was. And come to find out, she was between Ty and Abilene on I-20. So we were able to get out there and help her. But it was such a big risk, and I don't know that I would have done it at night, but I don't know how else I could have helped her because she had no clue where she was. Bless her heart. But so know where you're at when you're traveling. And at the beginning of your call, no matter what it is, person breaking into your house or whatever, try to give your location first. Give your address first. And so we can't help you if we can't find you. And give it as clear and as plain as you can. When the operator repeats it, repeat it back to her to make sure she's got it right so we can help you. So when you're traveling, the operator may need to transfer you to another agency because you may have hit Abilene and you may need a different county. You may need Callahan County. So stay on the line, tell them where you're at and what the situation is, because she needs to document it for her paperwork too, transfer you to the appropriate agency. Now, a lot of times during transfer, we lose you. So with you giving your location and what the situation is right at first, then the operator can just, even though she's lost you, she's got your name, phone number, location, what the situation is, she can pass that information on to the appropriate county and they can come out there and start looking for you. So try to give them all the information they need right off the bat, and then they may transfer you. So, and you never know where you're going to get 911 calls from, especially if the weather is bad and the cloud cover is really low. Sometimes we get calls. We used to get calls from Oklahoma. I have gotten a call from Snyder, and the man was chewing me out because he gave me an address and it wasn't an address that was good in Abilene. And I said, I'm sorry, sir, but that address is not a good Abilene address. He says, Abilene? I said, well, where are you at? He said, I just passed the white buffalo statue. And if I hadn't have known that the white buffalo statue was in Snyder, I wouldn't have known where he was. But, you know, you grow up around here, you know where the white buffalo statue is usually. So, but his mother's house was being broken into. So obviously he was very upset and trying to get help over there to her while he was driving. So know where you're at and be expecting to be transferred sometimes. So be as patient as you can and answer the operator's questions. If you're not sure where you are, stay on the line. We'll figure it out, but you have to stay on the line so we can help you. Landmarks, signs, last city you remember passing through, like the white buffalo statue. I mean, that gave me a clue, you know. But know where you're at and help the operator as much as you can. If it's a medical emergency and you're in Abilene, we are what we call EMD certified. What that means is it's an emergency medical dispatching center. So it's going to be very detailed when you call in with a medical emergency. And we're going to ask you all kinds of questions. We can help you with CPR. We can help you control bleeding. We can help you if they're not breathing, you know, all kinds of medical emergencies. We have helped people that have been caught in a mechanism that was on a ranch where they got their hand caught in an auger. So, you know, we've helped a little kid that was caught in the mechanisms of a recliner chair. So some of them, I mean, that one was kind of funny, but I mean, he could have been hurt really bad, but he wasn't. But in the county, may not be allowed to give medical advice over the phone, but they will send emergency responders out. But they may have it in their policy that it's against their policy to give out even CPR instructions or even to tell you how to apply pressure to a wound. So in Abilene, you will get that information. In the county, you may not. They think it's a liability, so they don't recommend it, but they will send emergency responders out to help you. It can be a little bit frustrating because you want somebody to talk you through it, because that's what people see on TV. But in the counties, they may not be allowed to do that for you. So how many people have heard about Kari's Law? Kari's Law was signed by Governor Abbott May 15, 2015, signed into law by President Trump in 2018. And what Kari's Law is, it happened in Marshall, Texas. It's a pretty tragic story. Let me go back here. All right. Okay. We'll just leave it on this screen for a little while. But Kari's Law, her and her husband were separated, and he was an abuser, so she had a protective order against him. And if you don't know the difference between a protective order and a restraining order, you hear that a lot on TV, get a restraining order. And a restraining order is a civil thing, and it doesn't help the person one iota. It's civil. So if a person is in an abusive relationship, they need to get a protective order. And this protective order is, like people will tell you, it's a piece of paper saying that he can't come or she can't come within so many feet of the victim and all that. So and it is just a piece of paper, but it gives the officer a leg to stand on. It gives him something to go out there. If she's got a protective order, he's in violation of this protective order, I can take him in. He doesn't have to have her permission, or she doesn't have to want to file charges, nothing. She doesn't have a say-so. He's in violation, he gets taken in. Restraining orders are civil, so you'd have to take them back to court and all that. But Kari had a protective order against her abusive husband, and they were separated. Now, they had 3 children. So he calls and wants to meet with her and see the kids. And so she feels sorry for him, and she takes the kids to meet him at a motel in Marshall, Texas. So they all go to this motel. And so Kari and her estranged husband, they go into the bathroom to talk. And the kids are in the motel room watching cartoons. Anyway, it gets very violent in the bathroom, and the oldest girl, she's 9, and the mother is screaming for her to call 911. So this little girl is trying her best to call 911, but it won't go through. She's a little girl, and she doesn't know that in a motel you have to dial 9 to get an outside line and then dial your number. So she's just dialing 911, and it's not going through because she didn't get an outside line. So she runs out into the hallway, and she finds this couple who are cleaning rooms, and she tries to talk to them to help them, have them get her some help, but they don't speak English. And so they just kind of ignore her and go on their way. And she's running around trying to get somebody to help her, and nobody is helping her. By the time she gets back to the room, Daddy has come out of the bathroom. He has grabbed the 2 younger children, and he's going to take off with them. And he tries to get her to go, the oldest child, to go with him too, and she won't do it. And she grabs the little boy, the baby, and she grabs him and pulls him away from her. But he gets away with the middle child, the little girl, and he takes off. What has happened is he has stabbed their mother to death in the bathroom. So she is bleeding out in the bathroom, and still no help is coming. This little girl is trying her hardest to get help, and no help is coming. Finally, somebody sees what's going on. They call 911, get emergency responders out there. They do get an Amber Alert going, and he's made it off about, I don't know, 50, 60 miles away. He's headed out with this other little girl. And a lady is at a stop sign or stoplight, and she's listening to music when the phone, you know how the phone makes that awful sound when an Amber Alert comes on, right? And she happens to look at her phone because she's at a red light. She looks at her phone, and lo and behold, the car that is on that Amber Alert is sitting in front of her. So they were able to catch the father and get this little girl back. So he went to prison for killing Kari. So Kari's daddy, and if you ever get a chance to listen to this man, I can't remember his name right off the bat, but he is something to listen to. He's a great speech giver, and he fought to get Kari's law passed to where motels, hotels, schools, colleges, anything with a multiple line phone system, you do not have to dial 9 to get an outside line to dial 911. So if you're in a hotel or a motel now, you can call 911. You don't have to dial 9 to get out. So that is what Kari's law is about. So it gives you direct access to 911 without an access code routing to the 911 system, which is a good thing. I don't know how many times I've been in a motel room or something. I'm trying to call pizza and I can't get out because I forget to call 9 before to get out. And not everything is 9 to get out. Some places, I think the Civic Center in Abilene, you have to dial 2 numbers to get out. And I don't know what their numbers are, but you have to dial a different access code to get out. So we do have a TDD. All 911 agencies have a TDD machine, a telecommunications device for the deaf. So TDD and TTY, same thing, it's just a little bit different. The TTY stands for teletypewriter for the deaf, also known as a text telephone. But if you're hearing impaired or have family members who are hearing impaired, they can call 911. We will just hit a button. It will transfer it over to a TDD call, and we can type all the responses in, and they can type back to us, and we'll get them the emergency help that they need. So we can do that, and all other agencies in Texas can do that as well. So all the law enforcement agencies are equipped with this equipment. This process takes a little bit longer, but it's as effective as hearing lines. We just have to type our responses back and forth instead of listening for the responses. So it takes a little bit longer to type, but all in all, it's a pretty fast process, and we will get you the help that you need. Now, text to 911 is something that's fairly new. It works a lot like the TDD and TTY, but it needs a special app to do that. So if you can text to 911. The TDD and TTY needs a special app to do that on your cell phones. All cell phones are equipped with the TDD. It may not be activated though. So you could just, if you need it, you can get it activated at the phone store, and then you can use it whenever. But text to 911, you can just text 911 like you would text anybody else. So it's fairly easy. It will come across on our line at the 911 center, kind of like a TDD call, but we will be typing back to you. This comes in very handy for people who are in an abusive relationship, because a lot of times we would have women who just got the crap beat out of them, excuse my language, but they just got beat up and they're hiding in a closet or hiding somewhere. So they can't talk because their abuser, if he hears them, will come in there and find her, and then it's just going to be worse, right? So if with the text to 911, she can just go in there and text us. And that's the only calls that I have gotten text to 911 while I was still at work was abusive relationship calls. I had women that were texting me that their abuser was still in the house. He had hurt her and she was hiding. So, but if he found out she called 911, then he would hurt her even more. So it comes in handy. So call if you can, text if you can't. You may have seen these advertisements going around town, but it does come in handy. And it's not anything that we're not familiar with at Abilene 911. It may be a little strange to the people out in the county because they don't get that many calls from text to 911. So it may take them just a hair longer. But in Abilene, you should be able to go right through. and because we got we're trained in it. Now, everybody heard of the Amber Alert? There's 6 different alert systems out there now. And the silver alerts, what we're going to talk about now, certain criteria has to be met before an alert will be issued. So a lot of people, what was her name? Haley Dunn. Everybody remember Haley Dunn with they always wondered, why was there never an Amber Alert put out on Haley Dunn? And there never was one because she didn't meet the criteria. For the longest, they thought she might have been a runaway. But certain criteria has to be met in order for any of the alerts to be activated. So we'll talk about the silver alert system, since some of us are, me especially, is getting up there in the age, and I have my, brother-in-law who's 83 who could just wander off sometimes. And anyway, silver alerts have to meet criteria just like any of the other alerts. They have to be 65 years of age or older, and they have to be, or they could be younger than 65 if they've been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's, unfortunately, can hit people a lot younger ages now too. So if a person is diagnosed with an impaired mental condition, and does the person, do they disappear? Does their disappearance pose a credible threat to the individual's health and safety? Now, some of these people, they wander off. They have memories of what happened 50 years ago. It's like it happened yesterday. And today, they have no idea what just happened. So they could be wandering off looking for somebody, a high school friend or something, because they have no idea what year it is. So a lot of the times, if they just wander off, it poses a credible threat, especially if the weather is bad. If it's 105 degrees out there, it could be bad. If it's 30 degrees out there, it could be bad. So yeah, these people have certain conditions that they have to live with, and their family members need to know how they can get not an Amber Alert, but a silver alert activated. So they have to have a diagnosis. So law enforcement, we're going to need some sort of proof of diagnosis on a physician's letterhead with a physician's signature. However, you can get around that just a little bit. If they're on medication from a doctor for that condition, you can take a picture of the pill bottle that has the doctor's name on it, the condition that medicine is supposed to be for, and that will suffice as a diagnosis, a physician's diagnosis. But if you have a family member who is suffering from something like this, it's good to think ahead. Go ahead and get the diagnosis on the physician's letterhead. Have it handy. Don't just like stick it away somewhere and think, oh my gosh, where did I put that? Because you don't have time to be looking through piles of paperwork when your loved one is wandering off, and anything could happen to them. We had a gentleman in Abilene that was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, but he still was very high functioning. And his family, he was living alone. Family members and everything would check on him, but he would get in his car and drive. So one of the hardest things that you may have to do as a, with your family member is taking their car away from them, because that's their freedom. That's how they get the store. That's how they get to their church functions, or whatever they're going to go to. That's their freedom, and you're taking it away. So the family members didn't want to just ask Daddy for the keys and tell him he couldn't drive anymore. So they went and disabled the car. Well, Daddy had days of lucidity, and he was not a dumb man. So he just called a mechanic and had his car fixed. So he's driving around. Here he goes. So the family comes out and they jack the car up and put it on blocks and take the tires and wheels off of it. So Daddy just gets his card out and has him come and put tires and wheels back on his car for him. So he's driving around again. So he's doing good. So they finally had to tell him, Dad, you can't drive anymore. We're taking it away. And they ended up putting him in a home. But Bless his heart, he wasn't a dumb man. He didn't know what was going on. All you had to do was talk to him. But for the police, for us to do anything, you have to have a diagnosis. And a pill bottle will suffice in cases of an emergency. But you might prepare for that in case you have a family member that's getting there. So law enforcement shall require the family or legal guardian of the missing individual to provide documentation from a medical or mental health professional of the individual's condition or diagnosis of Alzheimer's. So we have to have something to go on. We can't just, they have to be in some sort of danger to themselves or others, and they have to have a diagnosis or be on some sort of medication. And law enforcement has to confirm that an investigation has taken place and verify that the individual's disappearance is due to his or her impaired mental condition or diagnosis, and alternative reasons for the individual's disappearance have been ruled out. So you have 72 hours from the individual's disappearance that you need to get in there and get these silver alerts activated. So be sure and do it just as soon as you can. So it takes a little bit of time. You have to contact, of course, your loved one is missing and you've been looking for them. So that takes a little bit of time. And then you call law enforcement. So we get out there and start looking for him too. So there's more time that's gone by. So the sooner you get that report from the officer, the sooner that an alert can be put out. So highway signs will be activated only if accurate vehicle information is available and it is confirmed that the individual was driving at the time of the disappearance. So we did have a lady who was, she wanted to go see some family members in Arkansas, and she didn't tell any family members here what she was doing. She just went to the bank and drained out her accounts, all of her money, all of her retirement, thousands of dollars, put the money in the trunk of her car and took off. And when they found her, she still didn't have a clue what she had done wrong. She had given most of her money away. She'd stopped, here and there and gave most of her money away. A lot of people thought this was strange that she was giving money to, so they turned the money over to the police departments wherever she was at. And so she got a little bit of it back, but for the most part, her retirement was gone. And she just said, "Oh, I just got in the car and put the pedal to the metal," and off she went, So she was driving like crazy and had no clue where she was or where she was going and just giving out money. So when her family finally did get her back, and it was luckily that they got her back alive and in one piece. But her retirement was gone. And anyway, a pretty sad story. But if you have a car description, license plate, and all that, and they're in the car, give it to the police. And you may not think that writing down a license plate and your vehicle description is necessary, but when grandma takes the car and you think, well, she's got a red 4-door, that doesn't help us a whole lot. A red 4-door what? We need the license plate number. And that way those signs on the highway can be activated. Oh my goodness, I am run out of time and I've only Wild Bill already. This class is going to be very short, Misha, I'm sorry. Wild Bill is about 22 minutes long, and this was a man who was from Hamlin, Texas. He later on moved to Jones County to Anson when he was put in a nursing home there. But for about a week or two, he called Abilene because he got into a lot of trouble calling Hamlin 911 and calling the Hamlin Police Department, and they threatened to fine him and put him in jail if he didn't stop. So he started calling Abilene. And anyway, Abilene, I got all but one of his calls. And the first one, I believe, is about the monkeys at the zoo. So I was laughing so hard that I had to put another dispatcher on the phone because I didn't want Bill to hear me laughing at his story. But anyway, I'll let you listen to all of the stories and then we'll talk about Bill when it's over, okay? I hope it works. So
Yes, ma'am, this is Bill Matters.
you hear it?
How you doing? I'm doing good. What can I do for you? Well, I'm having a little.
You might have to turn your sound up just a little bit.
Yes, ma'am, I'm 40 miles north of you. Okay. Now, it's cold, as you know. Yeah. But now this has happened twice just a minute ago, and I don't know what to do about it. What happened? Well, I'm retired and disabled, kind of bedridden, you know. I have to use a walker. And somebody knock on the door. Uh-huh. And I say, just a minute. And I get up, you know, and I get my walker and I go to the door. And there ain't nobody there. But there's a six-pack of beer. Now, are they playing with me, or is that a gift or Christmas spirit or what? I don't know. Is it the kind of beer you drink? Yes, ma'am. They know me pretty well over here. Yeah. I mean, as long as it's cold beer, I'll drink it. Well, if he's outside today, I think it's going to be cold, isn't it? Well, do I need to see the local authorities? I would call them, and I don't, you know, they're not open, and there's no tampering on the cans or bottles. Or... It's good. I tried a couple of them. Okay, I think somebody's just giving you a Christmas present. Well, they could sure come forward, you know. Yeah, well, a lot of people like to keep it quiet. They don't have to be so sneaky about it. But if you want to, you can let Hamlin PD know. Well, but I mean, it sounds like a Christmas present to me. Well, it does me too. But I would like to, you know, return my favor.
Bobbie, you may have to unmute yourself.
What did I do, Misha?
It got muted.
Okay.
Oh.
If you want to let Hamlin know, you can let him know. It sounds to me like it's a Christmas gift. I could put it in the paper if I have to.
Well, I don't know what I did. What did I do?
I am not sure what happened. We heard most of it.
Let's see if I can bring it back up.
Yes, ma'am. This is Bill Matters. How you doing? This is Bill Matters. How you doing? I'm doing all right. Can you answer my question? Yes, sir, I can. I'm a retired weatherman.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm trying to get it into the next one, but it's not working.
Yes, ma'am. This is Bobbie. You can drive back up to the zoo and kind of open the door.
There's the monkeys.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Are they in the car with you? Yeah. Please, fire, may I help you? Yes, ma'am. This is serious. Okay. This is serious. This Bill Matters. Yes, sir. How you doing? I'm doing good. What can I do for you? Well, you done wrong. I went out to the Abilene Zoo. Uh-huh. And I got 3 monkeys in my car. And y'all can have them back for a case of bud and $10 for gas. You still in Hamlin, Bill? No, I'm in Abilene. You're in Abilene? Where are you at? We're right around the airport. These monkeys about to drive me crazy.
Hold on for me. Don't you hang up, okay?
I won't.
This is a dispatcher. Can I help you?
Yes, ma'am. I don't know what to do with these monkeys. They're telling me that they want to go back to Brazil.
Okay. What kind of monkeys are they?
Shit, if I know, they all look like me.
Are they those black and white ones that look like skunks?
Yeah. Yeah, they are.
Okay.
But lower your voice. Don't let them.
No, don't let them know that I think they look like
Oh,
that.
that's right.
Okay. Are they in the car with you?
Yes, they're crazy.
Okay.
Listen, I won't. That's all I want out of it.
Okay.
I want a case of Budweiser, $10.
Okay.
But now if I put them on a plane to Brazil,
Mm-hmm.
it's too late.
Well, I don't think you're going to be able to do that. There's too much paperwork involved just to do that.
Well, I told them that. They just keep screeching and drinking bud, you know.
Okay.
Kind of getting out of hand.
Well, you better watch out for them because they'll do other things to you too once they've had too much to drink.
What does that mean?
Well, they're probably going to pee on you.
Oh,
They do that at the zoo when people are looking at them.
I did. Man, I had no idea of any sexual
Yeah.
deal.
Is there any way you can drive back up to the zoo and kind of open the door and let them out real quick?
Well, I could.
Yeah, because like I said, if you give them too much more beer, they're going to do that.
They're going to be pissed.
Yep, they sure are.
But, man, that's what I ought to do as a Texan, you know.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to do that.
I think you better. And you better be quick about it too.
And I'm going to
Okay.
try to fool them.
Okay.
But I'll let you guys know.
Okay. Well, thanks for calling, Bill.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Fire, may I help you?
Yes, ma'am. This is Bill Myers from Hammond. Good.
Yes, sir.
I've been bad.
What have you done?
I've had sex with the zoo animal.
Now, why did you do that, Bill?
Well, it's just, hell, I got to drinking and she put on lipstick. They just went bananas. But listen,
Uh-huh.
when I'm going to tell you up front, I ain't trying to hide nothing. That female giraffe out there,
Uh-huh.
she scared my baby.
She is.
Yes.
Well,
I'm ready to go to the penitentiary. I'm even ready to go to the where they give you a shot.
a shot for what?
The carny. Hell, I've been drinking much of it and back of my words. The carny where they lay you down.
Oh.
And I tell you what, I'll die for that bitch. If I have to.
Well,
I love her. And I tell you what, I just couldn't. I'll go to my grave, love it.
okay.
I'm going to get that too tonight with the giraffe on my back. Said, we may run out of room before we get down to your buttons, but he said, I'll try it. Well, it's $2,500, but, you know, hell, I've got no family or nothing. I thought 2,500 was pretty reasonable.
Well, maybe you should just take a nap for a little bit.
Well, the cutlery and everything. I am gonna lay down, but I'm not missing Kate. That's just news.
Oh, okay. Well, you got a little bit of time. You can take a nap before the
Oh,
news
they
comes on.
said I was gonna be on there.
Did they?
Yeah, I answered a weatherman's question last night.
Well, that's good. You win anything?
No,
No.
it's just recognition.
Oh, okay.
He said last night, he said, come on there, his old Nate. He's one of my favorites. He said, it's going to be pretty cold tonight. He said, it's going to be 24 or 21 degrees. And then he turned to the camera and he said, if there's anybody out there that could tell me the difference between 24 and 21 degrees, he said, please call me. That just triggered my own mind, you know. And I called the son of a bitch. I said, Nat, I said, Smallville, Madison, Hamlet, Texas. I said, how you doing? He said, I'm doing all right. He said, can you answer my question? I said, yes, sir, I can. I'm a retired weatherman. I said, this is a no-brainer. I said, 24 degrees, one nipple gets cold. And I said, 21 degrees, both nipples get cold. And I said, if it's zero, I said, yeah, it's freezing up. And that's when he hung up on me.
Oh my goodness! So he's gonna tell your name over the radio.
Oh, no, I didn't give my name. He won't repeat it.
No.
But, you know, they come back on a little bit later, and he said, Goofy said, Nat, did you get any response to your question? He said, yeah, I did. But he said, I can't repeat it over TV. And so, you know, I was cut off. I get no respect. But,
Well, that's pretty funny, Bill.
well, I ought to call him and, you know, I might be eligible for some money. I don't know. But I'm not going to do it. I'm a law-abiding citizen of Texas. I'm not going to do it.
Well, you got plenty of time. You can take a good nap before the news comes on.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Abilene Police and Fire, may I help you?
Yes, ma'am. That's Smallville, Madison, Madison.
Yes, sir.
I've been bad.
What have you done, Bill?
Well, I just the only thing is just come out and see you.
Okay.
And I'll just leave it up to the judges. I raped all 6 of the Abilene Eagle cheerleaders. And they got together when I was through and they said they wasn't going to file charges.
They're not.
No.
Why not?
Well, I don't know. I got all their phone numbers and where they live. And I don't know. It was strange. Usually people are screaming and, you know, in a dark alley or something. But I never had that before.
Where did this happen at?
In the cheerleader's locker room.
When did it happen?
This evening.
So it hasn't been that long ago, huh?
No, I'm still taking a bubble bath. But I know I done wrong. But
Well, Bill, there's not a whole lot we can do if nobody's willing to file charges.
That's Bill. I would Bill bothered me a little bit, so I was concerned for him. So I called Adult Protective Services just to make sure that that they knew about him, especially after the cheerleader call. And anyway, so I called and they said, we're very familiar with Bill. He is a bad alcoholic and he makes up these stories. He says in the morning it's 50-50. He goes to the refrigerator, there's cold beer or there's a coffee maker next to the refrigerator. It's 50-50. So when I was looking for tapes to play, I thought, well, Wild Bill, he says a couple of bad words in there, but compared to the bad stuff that I have, I didn't want to traumatize anybody for the call. So does anybody have any questions they want to ask on how to do a 911 call if you have to call in?
Is Bill still alive, and where does he live?
Well, he lived in Hamlin most of his life. And when he got really old, they put him in Anson Nursing Home, and he passed away about 4 years ago. Gloria from Anson used to be over 911. She called me at work one day and told me, she said, Bill passed away. And I said, well, okay, you know. But he did talk about, I think it was during the giraffe call, where he said, I don't have any family and all this. Well, he has a son and a daughter. And sadly, his son got killed in some sort of accident just a few months after Bill died. And I don't know what's happened to his daughter. So I haven't heard any more about her. But yeah, Bill was just, I met him a couple of times because my brother and sister-in-law used to live in Hamlin. And they had that, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Hamlin, but right across from the granary, there was a restaurant there, O&J's Home Cooking or something like that. And that was my brother and sister-in-law's place. And when they were shorthanded and I wasn't working, I'd go up there and help them with tables. And Bill would come in, and he's a big, I don't know, 6'3", heavy, boisterous, wore a big old cowboy hat kind of cocked to one side of his head. He was just a funny guy. But those stories I've pretty much made him famous. I play him in every class I have because everybody loves Wild Bill. And I think he would have liked that. He would have liked it. So, but I don't want people to think that I would take calls like that and not do anything with it, because I did. I called Adult Protective Services and, hey, we got this Bill guy calling in, and oh yeah, we're real familiar with Bill. So they knew him. But he's passed away now, but he always gives everybody a good laugh. So, but when you call 911 if something's wrong, and especially if you think you're COVID, just let the operator know. They've got protocols to go through, and they want to tell their emergency responders what they may be walking in on. So just let them know what do you think it might be, and they will handle it.
Bobbie, Colleen asked earlier on chat, the silver alert, is that only Alzheimer's, or do they not do other cognitive decline?
No, any mental condition you might have. And so any loss of cognitive skills to where they just can't function anymore, it can go in as a silver alert. They just have to have a diagnosis. The Alzheimer's a little bit easier to diagnose sometimes, but if they've got diagnosis with Alzheimer's, it'll go right in. But any mental illness of something like that, it'll go in for the silver. So they just have to have a doctor's diagnosis or that prescription bottle with medication for that diagnosis that can get you around that. But yeah. But if you've got a family member that's like that, I would go ahead and get it and have it all ready just in case, so you're ready to go in case they come up missing.
What are some things that they can have ready for when, like, the EMS or police get there? What do they need to tell them?
For silver?
No,
just for anything?
just for any kind of emergency.
Okay. Well, it depends on the situation, of course, but of course, the police officers, depending on the situation, they're going to want to know what happened, right? So as long as you can get your facts as straight as you can, know what's going on, know names and numbers, cars, vehicle descriptions, just be alert and try to, things happen so quickly that you hear it on TV all the time. Well, I didn't see the color of the car. It all happened so fast, Try to bring yourself to the moment and say, they're going to need to know this. So I need to know, what color the car is, direction of travel, that sort of thing. One of the funniest things I can remember is I had a robbery at a convenience store. They put these little 16, 17, 18-year-old clerks in these convenience stores to work night shift, and then they get a gun pointed at them and scares them to death, right? But I had this little girl who had just been robbed, had a gun stuck in her face, and I asked the vehicle whether it was a 2-door or a 4-door, and she said it was a 2-door. And I said, okay. So I put the description of the vehicle in there, 2-door, direction of travel. She gave me a direction of travel, put it all in there. Later on in the conversation, she says, on one side. And I said, what was on one side? She said, the doors of the car. So it had a car that had 2 doors on one side. So it was a 4-door, but she just was, scared. She just had a gun stuck in her face. So I can understand that, but so I had officers looking for a 2-door, 4-door when they should have been looking for a 2-door when they should have been looking for a 4-door. But anyway, and I had one that before they put the strips on the doors to show you how tall somebody was, when they're running out of the door of the convenience stores, if you look on the side of the doors, there is a thing there to show you how tall it is. I had a little girl call in and I asked her how tall the suspect was. And she said, oh, he was tall. And I said, well, how tall was he? I don't know. He must have been 5 foot. Well, 5 foot's not tall to me. I'm thinking, how tall are you, darling? But, you don't say those things. You just think them. But anyway, but they have strips on the doors now and make it a little easier on them. But so I'm sure Max remembers some weird stuff that from law enforcement that they get their information wrong.
Yes, indeed.
Bobbie?
But yeah, have all the information you can, especially if it's on a silver or missing person. You need to know how tall they are, how much they weigh, clothing description if you remember what she had on or he had on that day. Just vehicle descriptions, anything that can help. Just think of it as you being out there looking for somebody, and nowadays, well, not just nowadays, but suspects in robberies and stuff, they layer their clothing, so as they're running, they're discarding their hoodie and so the shirt that they are found in isn't necessarily the shirt that they left in. You see what I mean? But as much information as you can give them. And we teach the people in dispatch to take descriptions from top to bottom and outside in. So tell me how tall they were, how much they weigh, were they black, white, or Hispanic? And, that'll help us find them, hopefully.
Bobbie,
Mm-hmm.
we live in town, but we have a farm 7 miles east of Anson where our horses and mules and donkeys are.
Mm-hmm.
And if something happens at the farm and we call 911, how do we make sure that 911 will know how to find us?
You'll have to give them some sort of, giving them an address. You got a physical address out there, I'm sure, but markers. A lot of times in the counties, just telling them it's the old Smith place isn't going to help them much, especially if it's a new dispatcher and she doesn't know where the old Smith place used to be, But markers, and have it marked if you can on the gate. If you just say it's the gate with orange spray paint on one end, or however you marked your gate, then yeah, tell them that. So see, mine has, my paint is coming off and I want to paint my gate again, but it's so tall, I need a cherry picker to get up there and do it. But on the very top of my gate, it's got a piece of metal with a T-bar L cut out. That was my father-in-law's brand. And so I just say, you know, I'm on the south side of the road and it has a T-bar L cut out at the top of my gate. And they can find me that way. Or tell them that that's where my brother-in-law, you know, where Doc Sellers' horses always get out, you know. That's,
Well,
they'll know that, but yeah.
Max just told me there is a number out there, but I hadn't seen it, so I think I need to check it out.
Yeah, I need to put numbers up on my place again because the last big storm came around. It took my numbers off. So
Oh,
anyway, but yeah, mark your houses. I see some of I go through neighborhoods in Abilene sometimes and I see the curb marked, the marks on the curb, which is great. But I think, well, there's so many cars, I wouldn't be able to see that marking on the curb if there's too many cars out there. So have it on the house as well to where it's lit up, because nothing good happens at night. You know, the bad stuff usually happens when it's dark outside. So it's hard to find a house sometimes.
oh yeah.
But, you know, tell them, you know, it's especially little kids. We would get little kids that would say they wouldn't know their address or something. And we're going by whatever the 911 address is on the phone. And they would be able to tell us that my toys are under the tree in the front yard. So that gives them something to look for, you know. So
Yeah.
anything you can tell them to help them find you, even if you think it's silly. And in the country, do we have to go through any gates? Is there any locked gates? Are we going to go over a cattle guard? You know, anything like that to keep, you know, so they know if they're going over a cattle guard, this must be the right way to go then. So is
Well,
the door unlocked? Huh?
The tax assessor has our number. I'll make sure it's visible.
Yeah,
Well,
you can't see out in the country, you can't see the 3-inch letters like you can in town. You have to have the 6-inch letters for the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a light, right?
With the light. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll give a little advice from my previous EMS background and hearing it from the lady that did the medication class for us. If you take a lot of medications, have a list behind your driver's license in your wallet. That way,
That's a good place to put it.
if you're unconscious or anything, the police will go in your wallet to get your driver's license and they will see that list of medications. And it's very helpful for the EMS to have that. That way they can give that to the ER too.
Oh yeah, I keep a list in my purse, but I didn't think about putting it behind my driver's license. That's an excellent place to put it.
Yeah.
And they have vials. You can get them from the Red Cross, little tubes where you can put your medication list and all that in it and keep it in the refrigerator or stuck on the refrigerator door or something like that if you need to. But yeah, that's excellent.
Anybody else have any questions or tidbits?
I know. I mean, it just didn't go by as slow as I thought it would. I talk too fast when I'm doing it.
That's okay. Well, it's 3:15. You still got 15 minutes.
You did a
Anybody-
great
Mr.
job.
Bill, I mean, I hope he didn't offend anybody with some of his comments.
You did a good
So-
job, Bobbie.
Well, thank you. I was very nervous and I don't know what I did with the recording, but anyway.
It was better than Saturday.
Oh gosh, yeah. If I hadn't have had Saturday, if you guys hadn't helped me Saturday, we wouldn't be doing this right now.
Yeah.
But y'all were fun. Thank you. Colleen, you have any questions? No? Okay.
Nope, I've called 911, but not for when I was like out on a jog. I was out jogging and I needed to call, but I stayed there until they showed up and, you know.
Well, did they handle your call well?
I do not actually remember the phone call. what I remember was the fire truck that showed up.
Oh,
I mean, and they didn't take, but they were like a mile away, so they didn't take them very long. I'm in Lubbock, and I'm probably a mile from the closest fire.
mm.
The closest
Well, I'm
fire.
glad they did all right then.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember the phone call because I was on a little cell phone. I told them where I was, what intersection I was at, and there was a guy who looked like he was. Well, it was it was one of those days. It was above 90 degrees. It was 11 o'clock in the morning. I had finished my jog. I was walking home, and he was dressed in blue jeans, work boots, long sleeve shirt, short sleeve shirt, and a hat.
Wow.
And he was stumbling, and then he fell, and I went over to ask him if he was okay, and he shook his head yes, but didn't say anything. And then he kind of got up and fell again, and then crawled up to a person's house, and I said, "Do you live here?" And he shook his head yes. So I rang the doorbell thinking, if he lives here, they'll come get him. The door was open, the screen door was closed. And a woman comes to the door, and she was on the phone, and she's looking at me, and I said, point to this guy, and she looks at me like this. She hangs up the phone, and I said, I asked him if he lived here, and he said yes. And she says, I've never seen him before.
Oh,
I
no.
said, okay, we're calling 911.
Was he intoxicated, or do you know?
I think the fire truck came first, and it wasn't the EMTs, but it were the fire guys who have that lower level training, whatever that is. Anyway, and they thought he was diabetic.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know whether they said his breath smelled something, and they thought he's diabetic, but I don't know if he had too much sugar or too little sugar. But they seemed to have it under control, and I finished my workout. I just
Probably had a fruity smell to his
Yeah.
breath then. Yeah.
If their breath is sweet. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you were there to call for him, or he could have.
Yeah, I mean, he never did say anything. He'd shake his head yes, is all he would do. And he looked bundled up. I mean, I was dying, and I was wearing jogging shorts and a t-shirt, and he's getting jeans and work boots and 2 shirts, and I thought, no wonder he's fainting here.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you were there to call.
I have no idea whatever happened to him. I hope they got him wherever he needed to go. The lady whose door I knocked on got him a glass of water, and he shakes his head like, thank you, but he never really did drink it. So I didn't know what,
Yeah.
it was beyond our control.
Well, I know a lot of times I've had people say that y'all sound, the 911 operator sounded so rough or brass, or but it's like we need the information quickly so we can get the help out there, and so sometimes we don't sound as friendly as they may want us to.
I don't remember that being an issue at all. I mean, I wasn't calling to chat with her. I was well aware that
Yeah.
that wasn't the purpose of my phone call. So.
Well, I'm glad everything turned out all right. So I'm glad I haven't had to call very many times. So I've taken the calls. I just haven't had to use it. So.
Well, Shelby said, very good presentation, and I loved Wild Bill. So she had to go, but yeah, she enjoyed that.
Well, good. I'm glad everybody liked it. So poor Bill, he's a funny guy, or was a funny guy. So hope he didn't offend anybody. The monkeys always have me laughing. You can have them back for, case of bud and $10 for gas.
I'm gonna look at the monkeys and the giraffes in a new light.
I know. He was on a zoo thing for a while, so I don't know about that, but I mean, it was winter time, and he was calling like every day, and it seemed like I got nearly every call.
Well,
But,
who was it? He was saying he got pregnant.
the
Was that the giraffe?
out at the zoo.
Was carrying his baby.
How he managed that, I don't know, but anywho. But
Anyway,
yeah, he called once and I didn't have the recording on it, but he told the little dispatcher, he says, "Sugar booger, I got some news that'll blow your skirt up." And I thought, he was a funny character.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think Jones County probably has some calls of his too, but I don't know. I'd have to ask Gloria, and she's not at 911 anymore. So anyway,
Yeah, she's the county tax assessor.
yeah. I seen her yesterday when I went, and my brother-in-law and I went over and voted. She was over at the voting booth thing. So
Yeah,
but yeah.
yeah.
You're not an akin to Billy Sellers, are you?
Do what?
You're not an akin to Billy Sellers, are you?
She's my sister-in-law.
No, Billy.
Billy. I have a sister-in-law named Billy
Oh.
Sellers.
No,
Wow.
this is a
Billy
man.
Sutton now, but
No.
no, I don't know. I may be. I don't know.
Well,
But my sister-in-law's name is Billy.
well,
Wow.
yeah.
But
this is
I mean, the Sellers grew up in Holly, and there was 8 of them. So,
Oh, wow, that-
Oh, wow.
there's, could be. Could be a cousin. I don't know.
might be.
Now that the family is kind of dwindling down, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know as many people anymore.
Well,
But,
well, thank you so much, Bobbie,
well,
for
thank
doing this.
you.
It was great.
Thank you.
A
Well,
lot of
what
good information.
Yes.
how do I log off, Misha?